Good Monday morning, friends. It is 10:16. I'm meteorologist Ashley Ruiz. We're going to get to all things Marco and Laura. We have the latest from the National Hurricane Center, and this morning we do have some good news in terms of Marco. It has been weakening over the last several hours, late last night into early this morning, and Marco's still to the southeast of the Mississippi River, the mouth of the Mississippi River. Here in the capital city, winds are starting to pick up a little bit. We're seeing sun, and that's going to be the case today. Once Marco begins to make that bend to the west, that's when we'll start to see some of that rain get pulled to the west with it. So it has been battling some serious wind shear in the Gulf of Mexico, and so that is why the heaviest of rain is displaced to the northeast of the center. The Florida Panhandle is getting rocked with some rain right now, likely some gusty winds, high surf, high risk for rip currents. So the bulk of the rain is staying to the northeast as of right now. And that's where we have the risk for some spin-up tornadoes today. That includes the far southeastern portion of the Mississippi Gulf Coast, southwest Alabama, both Mobile and Baldwin County, and all the way through about near southern Georgia, southeastern Georgia, and even into portions of northeast Florida. So that's where we'll see the risk for some spin-up tornadoes today and possibly even tonight. So you see Marco right now just spinning in the northern Gulf of Mexico, and those bright colors that you're seeing, that's all the moisture. Again, pretty displaced from the center, and we have, there's that trough just digging, and then we have dry air and some pretty intense wind shear. So that is pretty unfavorable for development for tropical systems. That is why Marco is reaching its demise going forward into about the next 48 hours, 24, 48 hours as it begins to make that bend to the west. It is forecast to make landfall near the mouth of the Mississippi River, perhaps this evening, as a tropical storm with max sustained winds of 40 miles per hour. So when you get to 39 and greater, there you have it. So it's going to weaken a little more. It has max sustained winds of 50 miles per hour, and it's moving to the north-northwest at 8 miles per hour. So it is kind of slowing down a good bit, and that's the end of its advisory. That continues into Wednesday morning, but by then we're going to be tracking Laura. So our impacts here in Baton Rouge have changed a little bit. Still anticipating some pretty heavy impacts for areas closer to the coast, more so in the form of storm surge. Storm surge inundation all the way from Morgan City to Ocean Springs, around 2 to 4 feet, and then there's a coastal flood advisory. So we're concerned about that thanks to the persistent onshore wind and the easterly winds, so they're moving from east to west, and that's going to pile some water to the eastern facing shorelines. That includes Lake Maurepas, Lake Pontchartrain, so that is why we have that. As for winds, not too terribly concerned with the winds here in the capital city. That's why we don't have that tropical storm warning in effect for Baton Rouge and the Baton Rouge Metro, but closer surrounding those lakes and then near the coast, we still have that tropical storm warning in effect, as we could see some wind gusts that are a little higher than 40 miles per hour. So that is a good possibility. But here, sustained 15 to 25 miles per hour, but within some of the heavier rain bands that may move across the area, you could see higher gusts than that. Walking you through, this is the HRRR model. All of our models have been handling this pretty poorly, at least our high-resolution models in-house RPM. So I'll show you the HRRR, just showing that most of the day, at least here in the capital city, we'll see sun and then perhaps a passing shower. But as Marco begins to make its journey to the west, it's going to pull that moisture with it, and it will likely bring some moisture with it overnight, and we could see some pretty heavy rain along with, again, some gusty winds. But notice tomorrow afternoon, again, rain is a little spotty, at least on the model. Let me walk it back for you there. And it's just showing, again, we could still see some of that moisture. Now by Wednesday, again, that's when we're going to be tracking Laura. So here are the tropical alerts right now. The National Hurricane Center says they are going ahead and dropping some of the tropical storm warnings. Let me get that exact information for you. They have discontinued the tropical storm warning from west of Morgan City to Intracoastal City, Louisiana, but the rest of it remains in effect. As in those areas in blue, the tropical storm warning, that is where we could see some tropical storm force winds. Notice it's closer to our area lakes and then of course near the coast. So to break down the alerts, thanks to that persistent onshore wind, that easterly wind that's going to eventually move east to west and start to pick up throughout the day as Marco gets closer and closer. That's why we have that coastal flood advisory. Inundation of 2 to 3 feet will be possible. That's for the areas in green. Now the storm surge warning, again, that's from Morgan City all the way to Ocean Springs. Could see inundation of 2 to 4 feet. So again, this is going to be the main concern with Marco. Along with some heavy rain, we have a flash flood watch, more so closer to the coast where the heaviest of rain will likely fall. That includes portions of the North Shore, St. Tammany, and then all of the New Orleans Metro and the Bayou parishes, and a few of our river parishes as well. You can see Assumption is under that flash flood watch. That's going to continue through Tuesday morning. These areas shaded in green could see 3 to 5 inches of rainfall. Now the Weather Prediction Center has our area under a marginal and slight risk for excessive rainfall, but the heaviest of rain is expected to stay closer to the North Shore and areas to the east of the I-55 corridor. Let's head into Tuesday. That risk for heavy rain starts to push to the west. This is all associated with Marco and some of that wraparound moisture. So we could see some pretty heavy rain at times, although our rainfall estimates from the Weather Prediction Center pretty much keeping the Baton Rouge Metro about under 2 inches of rain. Of course, you could see isolated spots even higher than that, but the heaviest of the rain, the 3 to 5 inch range category, that should be closer to, again, the coast to the southeast of our area, and then the immediate coastline, possibly into Mississippi and into the Florida Panhandle, because they're dealing with the heaviest of rain with Marco right now. Our rainfall totals with some of our models, this is for Baton Rouge. The next 48 hours, they're saying we might not even get an inch of rain. Now that's possible, but if we see any heavier rain bands, you could easily double or triple those amounts. As for our severe weather risk, the next 3 days, so be patient. Monday, our area has been dropped out of that marginal risk zone. Tuesday, it starts to get closer, mainly south of the I-12 corridor, I-12 and 10. And that does include areas to our south, mainly south of Baton Rouge. But keep in mind, of course, storms don't know the lines of where there's a marginal risk and a general risk. There could be easily a spin-up tornado even today or tomorrow, so that's why there is that marginal risk for severe weather. Now notice on Wednesday, the entire area is under marginal risk. That is for the risk for isolated spin-up tornadoes associated with Laura, as Marco will be well to the west and most likely dissipated. As for Laura, we'll get into Laura now. So max sustained winds of 60 miles per hour. It is moving to the west-northwest at 20 miles per hour. The center of the storm is situated to the south of Cuba. It's 65 miles east-southeast of Cayo Largo, and it is expected to eventually cross over Cuba and then move into the Gulf of Mexico late tonight. Now we'll have to see where it crosses over Cuba to kind of see where it's going to track toward in the northern Gulf of Mexico, northern Gulf Coast, I should say. Once it crosses into the Gulf of Mexico, we have a low sheared environment, deep, hot water that the Gulf of Mexico, we know the Gulf of Mexico is hot, but this is what Laura wants. That's the kind of environment Laura wants to intensify, low shear and then very deep warm water. So that's going to make things, at least in the short term, may allow Laura to rapidly intensify. So we're going to have to watch for that, but it is forecast to be a hurricane possibly as early as tomorrow, and then it's going to quickly move to the northwest toward the northern Gulf Coast, northwestern Gulf Coast. The question is, how quickly does it get pulled to the north? It's going to find that weakness and it's going to track toward that. So the weakness in the ridge that's steering it toward the northwestern Gulf Coast. But that is why the cone of uncertainty is still very, very large at the moment. The National Hurricane Center stresses that at 3 days, 72 hours, that the room for error is quite large. In fact, over 100 miles in terms of where it could actually track, and then around 15 miles per hour there's that room for error 72 hours out. So each and every day as we get closer to landfall, of course, the forecast confidence is going to grow. But the most important thing I do want to hone in on is that, notice again the size of the cone. That eastern portion of the cone is in our viewing area. It's more so to the west of the Baton Rouge Metro, but nonetheless, it still includes our area. Some of the reliable computer models, they're going to continue to shift to the west and to the east, and you're going to see them. So it's something we've been watching very carefully, watching the trends. We'll have to see. Once Laura enters the Gulf of Mexico, we will know most likely where it's going to head, because we'll have to see how it interacts with Cuba, how it is after it interacts with Cuba, just to kind of see what the magnitude of our impacts locally could be. So for example, it tracks to the western side of the cone, because keep in mind, the cone represents where the center of the storm could move ashore. So it could move closer to Galveston, closer to Houston. If it does that, our impacts will be significantly less than if Laura moved to the east side of the cone. And that's a little concerning because we are included under that cone, but the forecast track, as of right now, the National Hurricane Center's track brings it near Cameron, Louisiana, and that would impact Lake Charles, Lafayette, and even our area to some extent. That magnitude, again, something that is to be determined. As of now, the National Hurricane Center has it pushing ashore Wednesday evening as a strong Category 2 hurricane. And I also want to stress that it could potentially intensify into a major hurricane, which would be a Category 3. So it's not going to take much for that, because of course that would be closer to 115 miles per hour. So something, again, we're going to have to watch very, very carefully, but this is a pretty serious situation that could unfold for folks in Louisiana. So again, that is something we're going to watch. You see that blue color we have right now? Those are current tropical storm warnings for Marco. Separate alerts are going to be issued for Laura. So if you're not under a tropical storm warning right now, you could be for Laura later. So I do want to stress that. And in fact, the National Weather Service is starting to update some of these alerts as we speak. As for some of the computer models, folks love to see the computer models, and they've been pretty consistent with a landfall in southwest Louisiana. We have to watch trends. That's the thing. We're not just looking at one computer model. We have to watch the trends, and over the weekend, the trends have been pretty consistent with southwest Louisiana. Of course, there are those outliers that push it more to the central coast, I would say mid-central coast of Texas, and then there's some outliers that push it closer to the mouth of the Mississippi River, kind of closer to Marco's track, and then there's another outlier closer to the Florida Panhandle. But our eyes are focused in on where the majority of the computer models are and where the National Hurricane Center's path is currently for. This is the GFS model. It's pretty consistent as well, showing a landfall sometime late Wednesday into Thursday, potentially as a hurricane, and that would be more so closer to Cameron in southwest Louisiana. That was as of the latest GFS run. Now this is the European model. We'll have to wait for the other model to come out later, but it's showing pretty much the same thing. But notice again, we would still get some rain, and we would continuously see some rain at least into the weekend, as some of that moisture continues to get pulled in from the Gulf of Mexico. For the next 5 days, rainfall totals are going to be on the higher side. Of course, all dependent on where Laura does track ultimately. But if you look at this swath of orange, that's indicating potentially over 5 to 7 inches of rainfall, and that's just widespread. Isolated spots could easily see over 10 inches of rain when we see these tropical systems, and our area could see maybe between 2 and 4 with locally higher amounts. So you can see the heaviest of rain to our southeast, and then to the west closer to Marco's core. But again, that's all dependent on where it does ultimately track. This is the wind gust model from the GFS, just kind of showing Wednesday and potentially closer to landfall, and you see some wind gusts in excess of 30. But here's heading into Thursday, and of course, remember the GFS model has a landfall near Lake Charles and Cameron, southwest Louisiana, we'll just say, and it's showing some tropical storm force wind gust, and then things quickly subside. We'd likely see winds relax a little bit, but all in all, it's looking most likely as of now, but still too soon to tell if it is going to in fact make landfall in southwest Louisiana. But there is growing concern that southwest Louisiana could see a very, very strong hurricane. Could be a Cat 2 or greater. So that is why we always say to plan for a category higher than the forecast track. So it's forecast to be a Cat 2, plan for a Cat 3, and that again is a major hurricane. So with us being in the cone, and especially the cone, remember, basically tells you where the center of the storm could move. Since our western parishes are in that cone, plan for it, because yes, the weather's quiet now, but with some rain moving in from Marco late tonight and tomorrow, you're not going to have much time to possibly prepare for a major hurricane. We're not trying to scare you by any means. We just want you to be prepared, not panic. And so it's easier, or it's better to be safe rather than preparing for nothing, another dud, if you will. So again, plan now while the weather's quiet. You'll be happier that you plan for potentially a hurricane than nothing at all. Of course, that plan has to include your family and your pets as well. So again, we're going to continue to monitor this, and ahead of this, have more than one way to receive warnings. That could be a NOAA weather radio. In fact, that may be your most reliable source. Charge those phones, of course, and then smartphone apps. You can download our free BR Proud app. We have a whole page dedicated to tracking the tropics, how you can get your family prepared, the latest from the National Hurricane Center, and all different kinds of resources, as well as the radar. That's a really good tool to have. You can just go in on it and track the storms yourself. You can see Marco and Laura, and you can even zoom into the radar to see your neighborhood and even a future radar as well. So let me put the latest track back on just for all the folks just joining us. I know this is a lot to ingest and take in. We're going to have everything on our website, brproud.com, in a full discussion and what you need to know about the latest from the National Hurricane Center. We have around-the-clock staff here in the Weather Center, and we're going to continue to bring you the latest. So again, this is Tropical Storm Marco, still forecast to make landfall as a tropical storm later today and then make that bend to the west, and it's going to bring that heavy rain with it. However, could battle some more wind shear, some drier air. The heaviest of rain is over the Florida Panhandle right now. And I am going live on my Facebook page and the BR Proud page, so I'm sure we have some Florida folks joining in as well, and they're wondering what's going on. Well, this is all the moisture associated with Marco. You're getting the brunt of it right now. But again, that moisture is going to get pulled to the west eventually, and we could see some heavy rain here, but our impacts will be greatest near the coast associated with Marco. And I'll show you the latest on Laura just a second, just before we wrap things up and send you back on your day. So again, here's where Laura is now. It is forecast to move into the Gulf of Mexico tomorrow morning, and that's when we're going to have to watch it very carefully. Notice the cone is quite small once it enters the Gulf. That means the confidence is pretty high of where it's going to move into the Gulf, but it could move more to the west. That would possibly mean more of a Texas landfall. If it moves more to the east, then that would point right at Louisiana. So as of right now, it is forecast to make a landfall in southwest Louisiana as a Cat 2 hurricane, possibly even higher than that. But again, the cone of uncertainty stretches all the way from around Galveston to Morgan City, and that includes our western parishes. And again, keep in mind that is where the center of the storm can track. So if it moves more to the west, our impacts will be significantly less. More to the east, significantly greater. So We'll continue to monitor this, keep you guys posted. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Well, again, we have the full weather team going to be here around the clock. Meteorologist Jasmine Lomax is with me in studio. Chief Meteorologist Jesse Gunkel is going to be in later, and then I'll be here tomorrow morning as well. So if you don't have any questions, you can find the latest on this on brproud.com. So we're going to wrap things up. We'll bring you the latest. The 1 p.m. advisory is just an intermediate advisory. It updates where its current location is, and then the strength, if it weakened or intensified or anything like that. So the next track comes out at 4 p.m. and that's when Chief Meteorologist Jesse Gunkel will bring you the latest. But for now, stay weather aware and take care.